All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Surge. We're going to start this morning with prospecting and marketing. Um, it'll be at least two parts. We might break it up into three, depending on how fast we move along. But by the end of this week, for sure, I want to make sure that all of you understand, um, can describe what prospecting and what marketing are and how they contribute to lead generation. I also want to make sure that you all can explain the difference between the two because prospecting and marketing are not the same, and you need to really understand what each one does, how each one is used, and how they contribute to your business and how they work together. And then the last thing is learn to develop your own plan. So we're going to show some methods, some methodologies, some different styles. And today we're going to share with you some places where you can go and get content and ideas on what they are. And with that, we'll jump right in this morning and start with a little bit of humor and a little chart that I think was really, really appropriate to it. So I've mentioned it a couple of times in passing, and I want to reference it more directly right now. Cold calling has been just such a big part of real estate for so long, and times are changing fast. Laws are changing quickly. How people communicate, what they find acceptable, is changing very, very fast. So, really, for like the last year plus, I've been I've been warning or telling or advising agents, however you want to put it, that it really is time to learn other methods than just cold calling for a lot of reasons. But one of them is that it's really, really not that effective. It can be if you are one of those people that just can call for hours in a given week and you have all the scripts and you know all the dialogues and you have all the objection handlers and then you have really, really thick skin. But bottom line, I look at this, whatever your methods are, whatever you're doing right now, it's a really good chart to follow over there on the right is, are you happy with the results? If you are, if the answer is yes, keep doing whatever you're doing. If you're not happy with the results, then the question is, do you want to be happy? If the answer is no, keep doing whatever you're doing. If the answer is yes, change something. And that change can be at the start, and what are you doing to begin? Or you could be midway through your career and not happy with the results. And the same thing holds true, change something. And you should ask yourself these series of questions regularly. And so I'm going to assume right now that for all of us listening and watching, that you're not quite happy with your current prospecting and marketing. You're not quite happy with your results. So we're going to advise that, assume that you want to be happy with the results. So we're going to advise you to change something. So we're going to give you some options and some ideas today and tomorrow on how you can do that. But before you do that, you've got to really understand yourself. You got to understand what drives you, what kind of marketing, what kind of prospecting you want to do. There's different methods, there's different strategies. All have their pluses, all have their minuses. But the one thing that doesn't change or the given is you. Obviously, you can grow, you can train yourself, but kind of your personality and what you like and you don't like is always fundamentally the same. You can adapt, you can change a little bit, but who you are is really fundamentally hard to change. And so I got this from T3, a great place to go and learn more about real estate agents and brokerage and marketing, all kinds of good stuff. And they talk about the four agent archetypes, and they describe them like this. Do you know what kind of agent you are? If you don't, you may be making poor decisions about your real estate business and not even know it. Or you're not making decisions, you're just going with the flow. Most agents are trying to be a little bit of everything. Not only is this a sure path to frustration, but it's also a drain on precious resources like time and money. The two things I asked you to focus on budgeting your availability. The reality is there is no one size fits all business solution for everyone. What works and brings success for one agent may not necessarily work as well for another. The first crucial piece to understand is that there are four ways agents typically make money and operate their sales career. And these four agent archetypes are the networker, the prospector, the converter, and the marketer. Eventually, when you start getting really good at your job, you have a little bit of all of these in your repertoire, but generally we're better at one, or we like one more than the others. And here's a good way to describe each one. The four quadrants: the prospector, the networker, the converter, and the marketer. Uh, Direct selling are for the prospector and the networker. They tend to focus here. Cold leads is the prospector and the converter. Warm leads, the networker and the marketer. And then how that breaks down even further, the prospector is direct selling with cold leads. The networker is direct selling with warm leads. The marketer is indirect selling with warm leads, and the converter is indirect selling with cold leads. Now, some of you are like, I don't like any of them. Well, that's going to be a problem, because there's really only four ways you can get business in this industry. So you got to pick one at least, and you got to create models and systems that enhance your natural ability, your natural skills, and you can learn some of these others, and you can get better at some of these others. But find out where you start first, because you're going to see that you're going to have to try to find things that work best to start, and you might be limited by not enough time, not enough money, things like that, and that might also influence where you start. But keep these things in mind as you plan out your strategies and what you want to do. So let's further define the four quadrants. Direct selling. Let me move this up here. Direct selling agents are proactively engaging with their market to produce business. They go out and talk to people direct, face-to-face, Zoom, whatever you want to call it. They're not waiting for someone to pick up the phone and call them. They are reaching out to them. That's direct selling. Indirect selling is agents who leverage other things like leads or marketing to attract business to them. This is the person just waiting for someone to contact them, and then they're ready with their scripts, they're ready with their methodologies, their drip campaigns, things like that. Cold leads. Cold leads are agents have no established relationship with this type of lead. They call them, say, hello, can I sell your house? And that's where the conversation starts. Warm leads, agents have either a relationship or affinity with the prospective leads. So know these four quadrants and what they are. Here's some ideas of things to do in each one. The prospector, direct, cold marketing, they have to be good at these. Time blocking, cold calling, for sale by owner, expires, direct mail. You've seen and heard these agents in the office and at industry events and things like that. You know, that's the gunslinger. They just give them a phone, give them a list, and they're off to the races. The networker, more direct, but warm leads. That's their sphere of influence: networking, event marketing, relationships, social media, low technology. Then the converter is indirect and cold. They have an advertising budget. They purchase leads. They measure cost per lead. They must be highly responsive. They follow up and convert. And the last one is the marketer. It's indirect and warm. Brand marketing, identity. It's niche markets, expert, listing farm, open house, billboards, bus, benches. Now, in the first several weeks of Surge, we've seen examples of almost all of these. Not all of them, but at least some in each one. We've talked about time blocking. We've talked about sphere of influence, relationships, social media. We've talked about making sure you understand your budgets, making sure you understand your ROI on anything that you're spending money on. Make sure you have follow-up systems and campaigns in your CRM so that the leads that you buy, that you pay for, are not wasted, are not lost. And then the marketing, of course, we've talked about farms, and we'll talk about some of these other things here. But when you're thinking about different ways to prospect, market, to generate leads, this is a good place to start. Which ones do you like? Which ones do you want to try? Which ones cost more, cost less? Which ones take more time, take less time? Which requires more skill, which requires less? And you can really develop a good plan on how you want to tackle your markets. All right, so a little deeper in each one. Let's take a look at the first one, the networker. Networks sell through their relationships and their networks. Thus, their key strength is building and developing those relationships. For a networker to grow their business, they should be utilizing these key practices and skills: networking, relationship building, community involvement, leadership, staying in touch with their network. It's challenging to do that right now if you've never started, but not impossible. There's ways to think about doing it right now. But Some of you like this. Some of you you like to go to the cocktail party, you like to go to the event, you love meeting new people, you're quick to strike up conversations, you love that kind of mix, and it makes you feel good. And if you like that, then you're probably a networker, and you should focus on some of these things to build your business. Tools and systems you need, your CRM, which you have, basic email marketing touch system to follow up, business card website or basic brand website so that they can find you when they're ready to communicate. Social media presence, this is a thing that's growing more and more and more. And then you have plenty of time and plenty of friends because you're always out and about. Networkers don't need a lot of technology to be successful, and should stay away from more complex systems and tools that keep them from doing what they do best, which is networking. This should be enough. The next one's the prospector. The prospector makes use of their skill and discipline at prospecting to make a living. They don't need much more than a database of people to call in order to make a living, even if they have never talked to these people before. A prospector should, at the very minimum, implement these key practices and skills. A strong prospecting habit, that's time blocking, organized and committed to doing it every single day. Phone skills for effective appointment setting. That goes into a lot of the items that we talked about in past modules. Techniques, scripts, objection handlers, all those things are important. And then organization for follow-up. It's the death of so many people is they do the hard part of reaching out, and then when they get someone, they don't have the follow-through, and they have to wake up and build their business from scratch every single day. Some people can do it, especially in this market where just you catch one deal every 2 to 3 months. They're big enough that you can make it through a year, but it's not ideal. And it's a shame that you do the hard part, but not the follow-up and really grow your business. In addition to the above key practice and skills, a prospector also needs the following to consistently generate leads: a data system for expires, for sale by owners, neighborhood, things like that, a CRM for follow-up, direct mail, conversion-oriented website, testimonials, reviews, proof of results, a phone, and maybe an auto dialer. Be careful with the auto dialers. We've talked about that briefly in the past. Those are very difficult to maintain. The numbers that are on the do not call list, and so you get yourself into hot water. So if you're going to use an auto dialer, you have to remember that's not an excuse for calling people on the do not call list. Those third-party vendors do not absolve you of your primary responsibility to avoid those lists. So little disclaimer there. A prospector's business is very portable, since they don't rely on a network to make a business happen. Their focus and sales skill is what they live on, and developing and building these practices are the key to success. The third one is the converter. Converters buy leads and convert them and are reliant on an advertising budget and their skills at converting inquiries into relationships to make a living. They require capital to get started and must have the discipline it takes to be highly responsive, follow up, and to convert these leads. For a converter having a thriving business, they should be utilizing these key practices and skills: follow-up responsiveness, phone skills, appointment setting, organization for follow-up, measuring quality of and cost per lead. As an aside, this is a good team leader also. Team leaders who are good converters can bring on people onto their team that are some of the other archetypes because they have leads to give them. The tools and systems that a converter needs to successfully generate leads are as follows: a budget, advertising programs, lead generation website system, follow-up and lead management CRM system, and a religious commitment to follow up. You need a 3 to 4% conversion rate, which is high. Industry standards are right around 1.5. So this is actually a very high rate, and just shows you how tough our job is, right? So converters can most easily scale their business if they are effective, as they can always buy more leads when they have their system and follow-up in place. They also don't require a network of existing relationships in order to grow, and as such can grow their business very quickly when done right. Now, word to the wise, if you feel you're a converter or you'd like to be a converter, make sure you have your systems down, because when you don't, that ad spend to buy the leads, even though you think you're great at converting, when you don't know your actual numbers, when you don't know the actual success rate, you're going to always end up spending more money than you should. So this is a path to grow into. Make sure everything is set in place before you embark on this converter. But good for someone that's been in the industry a long time, has a lot of skills, has a budget, and wants to build this system. Last one's the marketer. The marketer is an expert at something, a niche, a type of real estate, a neighborhood, and broadcast this to the world. They attract people that value their expertise and skill in their particular area. A marketer should be utilizing these key practices and skills. Develop expert knowledge about something, build an identity or brand related to their expertise, messaging to their specific audience, develop or use campaigns to reach the audience. The tools and systems a marketer needs are a brand-oriented website, neighborhood, or specialty. Content, always content. That's how you show you're the expert. A CRM system with email marketing system, drip incubation system. Offers of value, free reports, blog articles, things to the market, lead capture tools, social, local presence. This is where we've been leaning the last several weeks with building our database, mastering our database, understanding our CRM, how it works, and then generating our farms. This is because of the system we work in and because the company pays for some of these high price items like your I forgot the word, your technology. This is a very good place to start. Obviously, the lowest cost one is the prospector, and you can phone and just cold calling, but that's often the hardest for many people. So we're going to focus a little bit on the marketer today and tomorrow, because that's just where we have been. So the next level here, the next part of our training this morning, focusing on this book, The 7 Levels of Communication. Many of you have read it. If you haven't, it's something you should definitely pick up. And what are you guys stuck on? Last one. Not sure why that's happening. Let me stop share and then I will restart it. All right. Nothing yet? All right. Let me somehow pause the screen sharing. So I'm going to stop it and then restart it. All right, there we are. Okay, sorry about that. So 7 Levels of Communication, great book. We're going to go over some of the content in here and help you understand a little bit more. This is a great graphic to keep at your desk, keep somewhere when you're working on your business, so you always remember these items. And so real briefly, the 7 levels of communication: advertising, direct mail, electronic communication, handwritten notes, phone calls, events and seminars, one-on-one meetings. The 4 quadrants are loosely organized here. The marketer is down here. So is the converter. The networker and the prospector are up here. Now, you see here on the left, it says impact. The higher you go on the pyramid, the more impact you have on your business and with the people you talk to. On the right, you see here the bottom 3 are called the informational zone. That's where you're just sending information. You're just sending out into the universe that you sell homes, and you're putting different reasons why people should contact you and why they should work with you. But it's passive. This is marketing. This is the marketing area. You're just sending stuff. You're not expecting someone to talk to you that day, but over time, it should. Handwritten notes occupies a middle space, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a little while. The top 3 are the influential zone. That's when you're making direct connection. That's when you're doing calls to action. That is prospecting. This is the scariest. It's probably the hardest, but it's the cheapest also. And so what we want to teach and what we want to show is find ways to do all of them. You're eventually going to have to learn to stack them and make sure you are generating leads through all of these functions, but understand how they work. If you have time and money, but you're a bit afraid of the phone, you want to start here, and you can start here. If you don't have time, if you don't have a budget, you're going to have to go in and learn the hard way right up here, one-on-one, phone calls, things like that. They can all work. This is something where it's not dyed in the wool where you have to start with advertising. That's all you can do. But what we're doing here is, again, because you have all the tools given to you by your company, by your broker, because we are building that foundational aspect to your business, we're going to try to work somewhat in this area here. So if, as a matter of fact, what I hope to accomplish in the next week or so is by the end of next week, for sure, all of you should have started your direct mail campaign to your farms in Sunnyvale, Cupertino, or Santa Clara. And we want to do it cheaply, we want to do it effectively, but again, we want to build that muscle. So, and along the way, we'll get better and better at each one of these. But keep this in mind, okay? This is the book, what it looks like. Michael Meyer is the author. And I thought I'd go through a few slides and just to give a really fast summary of what the book is about. The 7 Levels of Communication tells a story of a real estate agent named Rick Masters, who is suffering from a down economy when he meets a mortgage professional who has built a successful business without advertising or personal promotion. I thought in our current moment of time is really appropriate. There's a lot of agents who have managed to go through COVID and keep their business alive or even growing, and a lot of us who is really taken for a shock and our business is down. And so I thought really appropriate with this book and this timing to talk about this. So skeptical, Masters agrees to accompany her to a conference to learn more about her mysterious methods. Masters soon learns that the rewards for implementing these strategies are far greater than he ever imagined. In seeking success, he finds significance. The author, Michael J. Meyer, is North America's most referred real estate professional and founder of the Generosity Generation. He is dedicated to helping salespeople earn a better living. He rocketed to the top of the profession by earning $1 million in his 3rd year of full-time real estate. So this is not just a parable, it's not just a fable, it's based on his own experience and a successful experience at that. And again, let's jump into the chapters. We won't go through all of them, but just some of the major ideas, and hopefully it'll motivate you to go and get the book. And this is what we're doing today. These are resources so that from this training, from this idea, you can get these resources. So as you build your business, as you figure out how you want, what quadrant you're in, how you want to stack and implement your prospecting and marketing, you have these resources to go back to, all right? So here's some of the major points that he makes in this book. Don't wait for a life-changing event to change your life. When you see change, when you see need, go out and do it. Be proactive. When written in Chinese, the word crisis is composed of 2 characters. One represents danger and the other represents opportunity. The generosity generation he espouses is give more than you get. If your buyers aren't buying and your sellers aren't motivated to sell, perhaps it is your sense of urgency that is lacking and not theirs. I see that a lot right now, especially in this moment. The National Association of Realtors estimates that the average person moves 1 out of every 5 years. That's grown, that's moved up since this was written. It's now around 7 to 10 years, depending on what region you're in, but keep the principle in mind. That means 1/5 or 20% of your database moves every year, which would be 30 people if you have a base of 100 people in your database. Write handwritten notes to everyone for everything. If you are a realtor, when you sell someone a new house, throw a housewarming party for them. It's a great opportunity for you to get in front of more people. And then finally, use the acronym LIFE. Learn, implement, fail, evaluate. This is kind of the setup of Surge if you've been paying close attention. And I hope you are. So again, here are the 7 levels in the pyramid. The first one is advertising, direct mail, electronic communication, and handwritten notes. These are informational zone. Phone calls, events and seminars, one-on-one meetings are the influential zones, and that's where you want to end up always. The first 3 are marketing, fall under marketing. The last 4 fall under prospecting. And again, the biggest difference, marketing is passive, prospecting is deliberative and designed to get you a deal now. Marketing is designed to create the relationships and the opportunity to prospect to a lead once it becomes into your sphere. All right, he further writes comments and ideas that we've touched on in other places. So just for reinforcement, when your why is strong enough, the how takes care of itself. And that's why I always say start with your why. To get 50 referrals, you will have to give out 100 referrals. Write your blessings down every morning. He uses the acronym FROG. It's similar to Ford. Here it's family, recreation, occupation, and goals. Be strategic in your meeting times, stack them together and make sure each person meets the other person. This network stacking is what he uses. Granted, we can't really use it right now, but eventually we will. So write it down and learn it for future use. And that's as the people you know start to know each other, you will generate even more referrals that way. Another thing that he uses and we really like here, and if you haven't discovered this, you should know it in real estate, and that's a DISC profile. It's an assessment that determines a person's behavioral styles. Everybody has some of each, but one of them is typically more dominant than others. The 4 behavioral styles spell the acronym DISC. D stands for dominance. These are straight to the point. They tend to be driven, fast-paced, impatient, efficient, and brutally honest. They aren't into long explanations. They just want the bottom line. I stands for influence, and I's love socializing. They are often outgoing, friendly, emotional, and energetic. They're the life of the party. Don't mix your D's and your I's. S stands for steadiness, and S is steady and dependable. S is nurture. They live to serve and please. C is for compliance. C's are perfectionists who expect everyone to comply with the rules they crave, order, and process. The discovery is care like everyone's an S, smile like everyone's an I, prepare like everyone's a C, and sell like everyone's a D. Keep those in mind, and there's obviously a lot of more training that goes into DISC, but these are good notes to take. The better you understand these and the quicker you understand who you're dealing with in getting referrals or communicating to your farm or your sphere, the better you're going to do. If you act like a D with an I, they're just not going to want to talk to you. They're going to think you're rude. They're going to think you're abrupt. Versus if you are an I and you're talking to a D, the D is going to get tired of you. They're going to be bored. They're going to want to go on to the next item, and they just want, what's it worth? What do you do to sell my house? What do you charge? And learn to understand these things will really, really help your business grow. All right, end all meetings with people, especially when networking, with these 2 questions. How can I help you, and what can I do for you? If you are a salesperson and you are hesitating to call, it's because you're thinking about yourself. If you're thinking about helping the people you're calling and finding out their needs, it's easy to pick up the phone. I've talked to this point in different occasions in our training. If you really have the value that they're seeking, you almost owe it to them to call. And this is a great way that he's phrased this, where if you're hesitant to call, it's more about you than it is about them. The person who talks the most dominates the conversation, but the person who asks the most questions controls the conversation. This is kind of the 4 A's that we've talked about in script dialogues. Rank your network. A+ are ambassadors. These are the people who have big networks as well, and they are outgoing enough to sell for you. They're like your unpaid sales staff. Emails are for you to inform, confirm, or to get people on the phone. Don't sell or try to close deals via email. Focus on people. When you take care of the people, the numbers will take care of themselves. And then remember the principle of first and 10. First thing upon arriving at the office or when you're ready to work during COVID, make 10 phone calls. And a little bit later, we'll describe what those 10 phone calls should be. All right, so a little bit more on digging deeper into how these 7 levels of communication work in your prospecting and marketing is building relationships and getting to referrals. All right, so again, begin with the end in mind. If there were only 12 words on your tombstone, what would you want them to be? Who would you want at your funeral? What would you want them to say about you? What you want said at your funeral has everything to do with how you do business today. Your business should be a vehicle for helping you live and leave a legacy. You really need to dig deep and know what your why is. Probably the 10th time we referenced knowing and starting with your why since we started Surge. So if you just haven't figured out what your why is, I don't know what else to tell you. It's the basis for everything you do here. All right, once you figure that out, with the end in mind, how should you spend your time and money? You should not spend it on cold calling, door knocking, and advertising. This is trying to attract and close people we have never met. Now, remember, these are foundational. These are stacked. There is a place for cold calling, door knocking, and advertising. But when we're talking about the 7 levels, these are the least effective and ultimately where you want to eventually get your business away from. So you can spend time, energy, and effort and money on people we actually know, like, and trust. Think about who you sold in the last 6 months. The number of your relationships, not the size of your advertising budget, will determine your future. The more you give, the more you get as your relationships turn into referrals. If your goal is to get 50 referrals over the next 12 months, then you need to give out 100 referrals. You need to start connecting people in your database to each other. It's not about who you know, it's about who you know, how well you know them, and who they know. This is a good time to point out, I often tell new realtors when they ask about coaching, and the 3 main ones, and they say, which one should I do? I said, when you start, go to Mike Ferry. It's cold calling, right? It's hard, but it's effective, and it can build your book of business. And as you start building that book of business, go to Tom Ferry. Tom Ferry is going to help you broaden out different ways to attract. He brings in a lot of social media, a lot of more modern methods than simply cold calling. And then you graduate to Brian Buffini when it's all about referrals and all about relationships. And then if you do that over time, you'll keep elements of all 3 in your marketing and prospecting. All right, so again, the math has changed a little bit, but for this exercise, let's use these numbers here. The math, 150 equals 9,000. What does that mean? Assume there's 150 people in your database. Now that's a small number. If you have been using the memory joggers and the SOI builders that we provided, you should be up in the 200-300 range, even if you're brand new. Remember, those SOI joggers are not past clients and not people that you're already marketing to. These are people that you know in your life, outside of real estate, that should already be in your database if you haven't put them there. So remember that. So let's start with 150 people in your database. The NAR estimates that the average person moves once every 5 years. So that means 1/5 or 30 people will be moving each year. If they sell and buy, that is 60 transactions. If you did 30 transactions last year, you would be in the top 10% of all real estate agents nationwide, right? So since people move every 7 to 10 years now, if you change that number to 250 or 300, the math will work almost the same. Now let's say each person you know also knows 150 people. 150 times 150 equals 22,500 in your community. That's just 1 degree of separation. Who do the people you know? And then finally, so 22,500 and 20% of them are moving each year, then 4,500 people in your community are moving, and that equals 9,000 potential transactions. That's the math between 150 to 9,000. It seems weird, it seems complicated. If you recall, when I gave you the example of don't make the mistake of thinking that your sphere of influence is built like a honeycomb, where there's walls between your sphere and other people's spheres. This is another great example of that. That number of 22,500 is so large because that does not respect the boundaries of other people's spheres. Obviously, a lot of people are going to know the same people you know. They're going to, and when they use this principle, the people who are most aggressive and best suited and best set up to take advantage of this are the ones that do the best because they trust the math and they do the things necessary to attract the people in their community. All right, I was going to change this, but I decided to leave it in. This is a little bit older, but to put that principle into action, this is an old Trump University ad, and the questions on the left are designed to, when if you see an ad like this, answer the question. Will you attend if you see this ad in the paper? What if you see it on a jumbo postcard mailed to you? What if it's an email invitation? What if it's a handwritten invitation? What if it's a personal phone call from the person in the asking to register? What if he shows up in your office in person? So now you see why no one responds to the billboard, bus benches, or huge ads. It creates awareness. It does create a very limited call to action, but that's not what they're designed for. You wouldn't respond to that, and neither will they. So when you're thinking about how to attract customers, don't fall for the big ad in the paper. Don't fall for the jumbo postcard. You can use those, but you want to build your business further down here. The handwritten, personal phone calls, in-person meetings, far more effective in almost any line of business, and it holds true in real estate too. All right, so remember, as you go up the pyramid, the more impact you have on the other person and the relationship grows stronger. The lower three levels, again, are the informational zone, best used for informing or updating. The upper three levels are the influential zone. If you are looking to influence, convince, or sell, do it with phone calls, events, and seminars, or one-on-one meetings. I'm reminded, if you're thinking, well, events and seminars, we can't do those right now. If you were listening to Intero Now last Wednesday, Yoga Yang was describing how she uses Zoom meetings, Zoom events, and seminars to generate business right now. And I think she posted she's on her 28th transaction of the first 6 months of the year. So again, don't limit yourself just because it's a little more difficult to have a traditional event or seminar right now. There are different ways to do it if you keep your mind open, all right? So with that, I want to bring in a quick little video. It's about 9 minutes, and it goes a little deeper into understanding this influential zone and the informational zone so that you understand how they work, how you build them, how you work them together, and how you could start your business. So let me move to the video and I'll play it for you really quickly.
I want to divide the prospecting that we do into two categories. A great book I would recommend is called Fanatical Prospecting by Jeb Blount, spelled B-L-O-U-N-T. Fanatical Prospecting. Many of you read the book. What did you think of it? It was very good. Very good. About 80% of that book applies to our industry. 20% of it is more business-to-business kind of prospecting. 80% applies to us all. And what I want to do is take you through something right now that I would call familiarity versus direct prospecting. And to do that, I'll just draw a pyramid that summarizes all the things that you can do as a realtor to generate leads in the business. And I'm going to divide it into two categories. And the bottom category is building familiarity, awareness, getting people to know who you are. What are some examples of things that you do that build your familiarity? And By the way, photos on business cards and signs, current photo would be part of that. What else do you do? Facebook. Okay, Facebook, yeah, Facebook or any social media. That's all familiarity kind of building. So that's great.
Direct mail.
Direct mail. Direct mail, absolutely. Just describe networking to me specifically. Who said that?
Going to different kind of functions.
Going to functions. You have crossed the line up here. That's networking. So we're going to come back to you. Thank you. You got out of familiarity into the other category I want to get into. Thank you. How about just listed cards, just sold cards, mailings, advertising flyers, bus benches, billboards, all of this stuff. And this is very expensive. It costs a lot of money to build familiarity. And realtors who say, I'm really working, gosh, I'm spending money, I'm working, I'm buying this, I'm buying billboards. And then they still don't make enough money. What's going on? Well, what's going on is they're spending all their time building familiarity, and familiarity won't pay the bills. So what we need to do is have a very, very, very clear distinction between familiarity and what I'll just call is direct prospecting. And that's where the money is. So to become an income earner in the business, you need to get out of familiarity into direct prospecting. And that means you're either face-to-face or phone-to-phone. And back to your networking comment, absolutely, networking is your face-to-face. So my belief is that if you are not verbally talking to somebody live or face-to-face with them live, you are building familiarity. And by the way, I want to be very careful. I'm not against building familiarity. What I'm against is only doing that. How many of you are identifying? I saw a lot of heads kind of nod. How many of you realize right now they go, you know what? I'm doing too much familiarity. Anybody feel that way? Good. What is it? Why do you feel that way? What triggered you?
Just everything you said there at the bottom is what I've done. So.
Okay, so everything on the bottom in familiarity you've done so far, and how are the results been? Mediocre, and that's exactly what happens with familiarity. Good for doing it, but we need to take you one step further. Who else? I saw another hand go up. Who else has felt that they're in this mode? Where'd all my hands go? I saw someone else. I'm not going to answer a question like that. It's not bad. It's not that you're doing anything wrong. It's just that you haven't gone far enough. So, but there's a lot of good familiarity building. You know, just listed card, just sold, marketing, Facebook, social media, all that kind of stuff. So I'm not against doing that. And you need to have a good campaign of doing that. Drip campaigns, automated marketing, do things like that, postcards, whatever it is you do. But if you really want to make the money, you got to get out of this and say, you know what, I got to go face to face. When I interviewed Venus Forrest Griffin, the lady from Augusta, Georgia, she said, David, I want to take you off now. Come with me right now. We're going to take a drive. I want to go take you over to the Augusta National Golf Course, and I want to show you one of my billboards. So we drove around. We parked, and sure, a huge billboard with Venus Forrest Griffin. Cool little tagline. She actually marked so nobody could steal it. But there's her face up there on the billboard. And I said, what does you pay for this? Well, I pay $1,000 a month, except on Masters Week, I got to pay $5,000, obviously, because everybody's in for the tournament. So I don't know what she spends, 12 plus 5, maybe 20 grand a year in billboards. And I said, so tell me what kind of business do you get from that? He said, David, I don't get business from my billboards because it falls into this category. And she says, I think, if I look back, David, I said, I think I've had a couple of calls off the billboard. But that's not what billboards are for. They're for building familiarity. And I remember the company I worked with in Minneapolis. It was called Burnett Gagner. Ralph Burnett's, in fact, he just retired the other day. He was my first boss. I went to his retirement party. And I remember in mid-70s, we said, Ralph, when are you going to get billboards? We want billboards, you know? So Ralph said, okay, we finally have enough money to do billboards. And I don't know what it was per location, whatever, 800 grand a month, whatever. So we had 7 or 8 locations all over Minneapolis, St. Paul, with a big Burnett Gagner billboards. Guess what happened to sales that month? They went down. You know why? Because I, along with all the other sales associates, went, oh, we have billboards now. Finally, come to me now. Come to me now. I'm here. I'm really good. I got a billboard. Yeah, that's it. I'm really good. Come to me now. Yeah, try that being single, looking for a date. Sit in your house, get all dressed up. Maybe somebody will drive by and go, I wonder if there's somebody in here who's a you know, somebody I could be engaged with, maybe have an intimate relationship. Let me just go knock on this door and see if somebody might be there. You know, you got to get off your aspirations to go do something. So I kept asking her about her billboards, and I said, Venus, why do you do them? And she says, here's why I do them. And she held up a postcard, one of the large postcards that has a picture of her standing in front of her billboard. And when she shows up on a listing, she shows the postcard to the seller. Said, I'm Venus Morse Griffin. I'm here for the 3 o'clock appointment. I'd like to introduce myself. Does this, by the way, you may have seen me around town. And they go, oh my gosh, yeah, we see your billboards all over the place. That's worth 20 grand a year to have her seller say, yes, we've seen your billboard. What does that do in a listing presentation? It builds credibility, it builds trust, it builds respect, it builds, they have to like you and trust you. So for her, it's worth 20. But then she went on to say, and I said, Venus, my videos go out to a lot of new agents. What would be your advice on billboards? I said, David, don't have to do that. Do not have a new agent do billboards and bus benches. She said, it's a waste of money. She says, and I quote, she said, you need to first build your book of business. That means you got to do it the hard way. You got to hold open house. You got to knock on doors. You got to open some buyers. You got to get back your spirit. You have to get enough of a book of business and a client base before you start doing stuff like that. So I would take it one step further. How many of you here are new agents? And a lot of you. In that case, maybe skip familiarity for now and just do direct prospecting. And if I divided this group into two, one that did familiarity and one that just did direct prospecting and no familiarity, who's going to make the money? These are groups that are going to make money. I think last night at dinner, you made a comment to me that you've seen a seller list with an agent who's been in the business only 6 months with no experience and not list with the 20-year veteran, right? Why does that happen? Because they showed up. They showed up. That's why. Question I like to ask all of you. Have you ever bought a product or service from a salesperson who's bad? Car, anything. You think about a time you bought it, just a stupid salesperson, just bad, incompetent, didn't like them. How many have ever done that? We've all done it. Why? Why? They were there. Major point. If you can't be good, you have to be there. So let's add another word to this chart. Up here is being there, down here is being good. You do not get paid for being good, you get paid for being there. I'm not advocating being bad, but I'm going to draw your attention up here. This is where the money is. I would also put some other words to this. Up here, I would call it active. Down here, I would call it passive. Now, the perfect relationship of a good real estate agent is a balance between both. I would encourage you to leave here today and take a look at everything you do and divide it into 2 columns. You know, what am I doing to build my familiarity and brand? Which is good. Don't stop. But now what am I doing to actually take me to somebody else and start meeting people? But that's where the money is. So how do you feel about going forward from now on and focusing, crossing the line into direct prospecting?
All right, let me jump back in here. So I really love that video. I've watched it so many times over the last several years, and I draw from it a couple of things. The first thing was, if you're new, or as we talked about in our first slide, the second slide, if you're unhappy with your current results, where should you be? You should be in that influential zone, in the direct prospecting, building familiarity over the long haul, but going in and getting results quickly. So the first several weeks of Surge, for example, that's all we've been doing. In fact, 9:30, many of you will be back on practicing scripts, and then from 10 to 11, calling your sphere, calling past clients, calling just mets, and we've religiously done that for almost 4 weeks, because we know that's where you get the business. Where we are now is we're not giving that up. As we're starting to talk more about prospecting and marketing, we're bringing in the idea of getting a farm and starting to bring in that informational zone into your business. That is to create more just mets to put into your direct prospecting campaigns. That's how the two work together. You can live in direct prospecting your entire career, but you'll never build a business that way. And then when you retire, it stops. And that's why so many agents never retire. They just, well, it won't be graphic. but they just can't stop because they never built the familiarity part of their business. They never built that base. Think of the size of the triangle there on your screen. If you cut out familiarity, direct prospecting would still be there, but it'd be a much smaller triangle. And that's what we're trying to get to. We do understand, and we want to get you busy during COVID and this period. We want to tackle it head on by focusing on direct prospecting for the bulk of our search range so far. But now we want to not ignore, not forget, and this is why I wanted in this video to remind you, direct prospecting is still the best way to go to get your next deal. But to build a real business, you have to start bringing in the familiarity. That's the example he gave of Venus Morris Griffin, right? She wastes $22,000 a year on billboards that never brings her business, just so when she, through her direct prospecting, gets face-to-face, she can say, oh, you've seen me around. So as we get prepared to send out your marketing pieces to your farms, you want that kind of response. You want to get that to a point where they've seen your face, they've seen your number, they know you sell, or at least they think you sell in that farm. So that when they do get into the direct prospecting phase, you're like, oh, you know me. You see me every month. I send you a postcard. I send you a flyer. That's what we're trying to do here. Again, big picture, information zone is expensive. It does take a lot of time, but we can do it cheaply. That's why I've asked all of you for your budget of time and money. And if you just absolutely can't do it, then you have to build your business plan, all direct prospecting, and putting some of your earnings from your next transaction into building familiarity. That's where you'll start to build that base that grows your business over the long haul. I put down a couple of the notes here. And he said, David Knox said, that the building familiarity does not bring immediate money, but long-term it will through direct prospecting. And he talked about right now it's face-to-face, phone-to-phone. And I've been thinking about this for the last several weeks, and it's a great time to point it out. When we look at all the issues we have with COVID-19, with stay-in-place orders, with all the different challenges we have, think a different way, think a new way. The most impactful, the most direct, and the best way to generate business right now is face-to-face and phone-to-phone. And that is a great environment. Stay-in-place orders are a great environment to do that in. And so as I watched it again last night, preparing for today, it just reminded me, I've been thinking about that abstractly, but just to hear it again, the best way is face-to-face, phone-to-phone. COVID was built for that. It's through Zoom that you're face-to-face, but you're there and people are listening and they're active. So we're going to continue to focus on that direct prospecting. We're going to continue to focus on making your calls, learning your scripts, learning your dialogues, understanding all of that. But at some point, and that point is now, we have to start building that informational zone too, because I am convinced that you all want to build a business, not just be a realtor. You can be a realtor in your business. That's the ideal place to be. So I hope that makes sense. I hope you enjoyed the David Knox video. I think I'm going to finish with this because handwritten notes are kind of that in between. And we've been assigning you homework of doing handwritten notes. And some of you have asked me, what should we do? How should we write it? And so I got this from the 7 Levels book. And here's how he describes how you should write a powerful handwritten note. Number 1, use unbranded cards with a symbol or monogram that represents you. It's a personal note. For those of you with teams, that's awesome. You can just use your logo. No card with company logo. It's a good way to get it thrown out as soon as it comes in. Use blue ink. It looks original and positive. In that blue ink, the words you should use, Use you, but avoid I, me, and my. It is about them, not about you. So make sure you practice them first. And if you are using the word you, if you're using the words I, me, and my in your handwritten note, start over. It's all about them. Be specific in your praise. Identify and acknowledge a characteristic, a talent, or a unique quality. If you've been maintaining your CRM, you have plenty of examples of that. And if you haven't, another reason why you should start doing that in your CRM. Leverage the power of positive projection. Identify a personal characteristic you want to improve and express respect for others who possess that quality: happiness, wealth, balance, etc. If you've been practicing the FOR technique, or FROG as Michael Meyer calls it, you're going to have plenty of examples of that to stress and individualize the handwritten letter. Write rightly. That's hard to say. Slope text slightly upward from left to right. This is from the book called Your Handwriting Can Change Your Life by Vamila Rogers. And there's something to that, apparently, where people pay attention more if that's how you write. I'm in trouble because I have straight up and down text, so I've got to practice that. The power of the PS. Use a PS as a call to action. Ask the recipient to take action such as emailing or calling. Don't do it in the body, do it in the PS. It's an afterthought, but people always want to read the PS. In fact, sometimes that's all they read. Write these notes to everybody you know. Pick up a business card, look in your email, look in your database, find a person, identify a positive characteristic to acknowledge, and write the note. Write at least 50 with a compelling PS this week, and your phone will ring. All right, so we've been giving you that homework. I hope you've been doing it. If you have not, because you didn't know what to write, here's a quick little template. I will email this out later today so you don't have to memorize it or screenshot this. All right, with that, we still have a lot to cover, but I don't want to keep you too long. Again, we will be reconvening at 9:30 for script practice, and then from 10 to 11, making your phone calls. And then at 5, we will be doing our check-in. So we will pick up where we left off here and getting into a little bit more detail on prospecting and marketing tomorrow and Wednesday. So hope to see you all then. Thank you for joining us this morning. And I will see hopefully a lot of you a little later on the script practices. Okay? Thank you. Have a great day.